You ever in the mood for a spicy, sweet and sour suffering chicken blaster, shooting rays of Shaoxing wine and having Sichuan peppercorn Bogart blast your pie hole while the sweet aroma of weak-leaked sheets dribble into your gullet? Well, let Papa teach you.
So I'm re-recording the intro here in my room because in the kitchen I accidentally had myself out of focus. Today's video is going to be about Kun Pao Chicken. I'm sure most of us have had that from Chinese American restaurants. Today is going to be a more authentic Sichuan Chinese version. If you would like it more sweet like it is in Chinese American restaurants, all you have to do is add some more sugar to the recipe, but I would highly suggest trying the authentic way first because you might like it. Today's ingredients are boneless, skinless chicken thighs. You're gonna need 2 pounds. Then we're gonna have a lot of garlic. You don't need this much, but I really love garlic. You're gonna have a bunch of ginger. I only use about half of that. You're gonna want unroasted peanuts. This is gonna be important, so make sure you get unroasted. You're gonna get any kind of chili peppers. I got chili arbol, make sure they're dried. These are Sichuan peppercorns. You can find them at most Asian grocery stores. They make your tongue kind of tingly and numb. You'll get those a lot in Chinese hot pots and stuff like that. You really need it for this dish to add a little bit of that floral taste and to cut the spiciness of the chilies, and you can just balance those flavors. Next, we're gonna use some Korean chili flakes. These are gochugaru. You can find these at like H Mart or anything. They're mainly used just for the coloring. Don't go overboard, it'll make your dish too spicy, unless that's what you're looking for, of course. We're gonna have some leeks. I got some really bad looking ones, so it does kind of affect the dish, but get what you can. Next, we have some Shaoxing wine. Again, you can find this at most Asian restaurants. It doesn't really go bad, so once you get one of these for like 20 bucks, it'll last in your cupboard forever. Just some basic cornstarch, basic salt. Then we have some Chinese black vinegar. This is really important to give it that tang. We got dark soy sauce and light soy sauce. You're gonna need both. And then we just got some plain white sugar, and that's about all you need for the dish. As always, we're gonna start by removing the fat and gristle, maybe some random bones that are in there from our chicken breast to get it nice and cleaned up. Then we're just gonna hit it with the back of the knife a little bit just to tenderize it slightly. Not really that important. You just don't want to hit it with a meat tenderizer, because if you do, it's going to get way too thin and you're not going to be able to use it for the dish. We're ideally getting all these pieces into uniform 1/2-inch cubes. Just get it as close as you can. The closer you are to having it all uniform, that just means that it's going to cook way more evenly. So I highly recommend taking the extra time just to get them perfectly. All right, to our chicken chunks, we're gonna add them all to a bowl, and then we're gonna add 1 teaspoon of just any kind of salt you got. This is fine grain, so if you're using kosher, you're gonna wanna use more. And this isn't measured by weight, which is dumb, but Next, we're gonna want a teaspoon of just whole white sugar, whole grain? I think it's all whole grain. Granulated white sugar. It's not important. You can use whatever sugar you want, you just need a teaspoon. Next, we're going to be going in with 2 teaspoons of Shaoxing wine. Go out of your way to find this because it really adds that depth of flavor that you're not going to get without it, and what is probably missing in a lot of your Chinese dishes. Then we're going to add a teaspoon of dark soy sauce. 2 teaspoons of your cornstarch. You might need a little bit more than this. You can kind of eye it depending on how packed your cornstarch was. You just want to have enough to get a little bit of a coating just so that it's kind of all comes together. We're just going to need the whites of 1 large egg. And then just mix it all really well together and set it to the side to marinate while we do the rest of the prepping. Deseed your chilies. You can put as many or as little as you want. My girlfriend was going to eat this, not me, so I didn't make it too spicy. Just make sure you get all the seeds out of there and then give them a little rinse when you're done, just to make sure that as much of the spiciness is out of there. You can keep the seeds if you want it to be more spicy. Cut your leeks into little circle thingies. Cut your garlic into strips, or use the second part of your garlic press to get these little strip thingies, and you can just use as much or as little garlic as you want. But as always, I add a ton of garlic to all my dishes. Next up is our ginger. I like to cut mine the corners off just to make a square, just to make it easy to work with, and then you can just use the back of the knife to scrape off all the excess. Then you're going to want to cut that big old cube into these little thin strips, and that's what you're going to be frying. I know they look big, but it's mainly used to flavor the oil, and when you get a big old chonker while you're eating, it'll be nice and crispy from the oil. It's really good. Next up, we're going to be making the sauce. To do that, we're going to add 2 full tablespoons of sugar, and that's not going to make it super sweet. So if you would like it more like the American Chinese version, just add some more, like another tablespoon or 2 of the sugar. 3 tablespoons of black Chinese vinegar. 1 tablespoon of Shaoxing wine. 1 teaspoon dark soy sauce. 2 teaspoons of regular soy sauce. A teaspoon of salt. And then just mix everything thoroughly until it's completely dissolved. Here we're just making a regular old cornstarch slurry just to thicken the sauce when we're done. Eyeball it, and then you can add as much or as little as you want to thicken up the sauce in the end. It's up to you. And then just add about 25 Sichuan peppercorns in with your peppers. Then heat your wok up to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. That's going to be used to roast our peanuts. Once it's there, we're going to put our peanuts in. Make sure that you stir them regularly and get oil everywhere to make sure that they're evenly cooking. Then after about 5 or 6 minutes, when they're nice and golden, you're going to want to get them out as soon as possible to avoid overcooking so that they don't become bitter. Use a metal slotted spoon. I only had a plastic one, so I had to work with what I got. Luckily it didn't melt or anything. And as soon as these are out, you're going to turn your oil up and get it to 385 as soon as possible. That way all the pieces of peanuts in there don't burn like super bad. Then as soon as that's up to 385, we're going to go ahead and dump the entire bowl of chicken in there. And once it's in the oil, just let it sit for a couple seconds and then start breaking it apart so that the pieces don't stick together, because that coating that we had was very sticky. So if you don't break it up, it'll all kind of just turn into one giant piece of chicken. And just keep stirring that around in there for about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. Then you're going to want to strain all your chicken out, keeping about 3 tablespoons of the oil left over. This whole time you're going to want to keep your flame as high as it'll go, because we're going to be stir frying the rest of the dish. Now go ahead and dump in your chilies, and we're just going to stir fry those a little bit until they get nice and roasty. Don't overdo it, because if you keep them in there too long, they can burn really quickly. Go ahead and add your gochugaru. That's going to give our dish a little bit more kick to it, and it's going to add the redness that you expect to have in a Kun Pao chicken. After frying that for about 30 seconds, we're going to add in our ginger and garlic and stir fry that for another 30 to 45 seconds. Really, all this is just making the oil flavored so it can flavor the rest of the dish. You don't want to put it in there too long, or it's really going to make your dish bitter. Lastly, we're going to throw in all of our somewhat cooked chicken. This chicken is already about 90% of the way cooked just from being in that oil. And then we're going to throw our leeks on top. You want to do this at the same time, because if you throw those leeks in too quickly, they're not going to hold together and they're just going to fall apart and get mushy. So just stir fry this for about 1 minute. And then we're going to pour over our sauce and give everything a good mixing. And you're just going to coat all the pieces as well as you can and just cook it to reduce it down a little bit. Give a little bit more cooking time for that chicken. You just don't want to overdo it. Even though we are using thighs, you still want to be careful not to overcook it. And after about 30 seconds of doing that, we're going to add in our cornstarch slurry. Again, add as little or as much as you need to make it as thick as you want it. I ended up using all of this cornstarch because mine was a little bit thin. And once all it's in, we're going to throw in our peanuts. And to be fair, I did put too much peanuts in this. I regret this, so don't make my mistake and put in too many peanuts. After just mixing that in there for about 10-15 seconds, your Kun Pao chicken is done, and you can serve it up with a nice bowl of rice. And there you have it, Kun Pao chicken. So let's try a bite. It looks really good, but I bet it's really, really hot because it just came out. The chicken is so tender. Nice and spicy. Sweet. I added a lot of ginger, but there's not too much of a ginger flavor because I added them in big chunks. So you'll get like the big bites of the ginger, but it doesn't over ginger the dish itself. You get a couple of those Sichuan peppercorns. I added more than you should, but it's because I really like them. So you get a little bit of that floral taste from them, and then the black vinegar. It's delicious. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in like 5 days. Peace.